A private golf club hires a biotech business to manage its fields on a gated island neighborhood in Montreal. Rich folks can play golf all year round because they spray the area with their newest fertilizer, which melts snow and maintains the grass beautiful and green throughout the winter. Security guard Dan carries a lot of supplies to his house the following day after arriving in town. He's a deranged survivalist who lives for the worst-case scenario and was brainwashed by a radio program that promotes every possible conspiracy. Dan tries to start a fire tonight without any matches, but it doesn't work, so he takes a shotgun shell and utilizes its powder, which results in a tiny explosion that burns one of his eyebrows. While Michelle, the CEO of the biotech business, plays golf with a wealthy couple to show them how well the grass is doing as a result of their treatment, Patricia, Dan's daughter, works as a caddy at the golf club. But the fertilizer particles are growing beneath the earth, tainting the town's water supply. An actor named Jacques drinks a glass of tap water at a studio before heading out to buy groceries. In order to keep perishables fresh, water is sprayed on the shelves and tap water is used to wash all of the fruit and tools in the store. Jacques feels a little lightheaded suddenly, but he ignores it for the time being. His teeth are going green and he can feel his hunger rumbling when he gets home. When he eventually locates his wife in the restroom, he has fully transformed into a zombie. He bites the unfortunate woman, consuming her flesh and causing her to change as well. Their eyes turn green and they come to a stop as Jacques joins her in the tub. Michelle and the couple head back to the main building within the club and are taken aback to find it deserted. A man abruptly leaves while screaming that everyone must flee because people are ill, and a number of zombie employees quickly emerge to pursue him. The woman summons the dog over at that same moment, but the dog charges at her and bites her neck in a fit of rage. After throwing the dog out right away, Michelle and the spouse witness more zombies appearing. Both guys dash into the structure and lock the door to keep the zombies out as the woman freezes as her body changes. They keep the dog in a different room after it infiltrates and bites the spouse in the leg. The husband changes and begins going after Michelle, who runs to hide in the kitchen after grabbing a knife, as the zombies congregate at the door and begin to beat. Dan receives a call in town from an elderly woman complaining that her neighbors are arguing and being very noisy. When Dan gets there and rings the bell, the neighbors show up against the door, and it becomes clear that they are zombies. Simultaneously, the elderly woman transforms into a zombie and pursues Dan. Dan promptly seeks refuge in his vehicle and attempts to contact for assistance, but receives no response. Dan tries contacting Patricia as more zombies emerge outside his window, but she is too busy trying to get away from the monsters to answer. Concerned, Dan chooses to forego the work vehicle and search for his daughter using his own vehicle equipped with a firearm. Teenage Andre, who lives nearby, almost makes his sister Annie's milk using tap water, but his mother tells him to use bottled water to keep the infants safe. Andre sticks to Pepsi and never drinks any form of water. The mother soon begins to feel lightheaded, but Andre attributes it to all of her exercise. Shortly after, the mother transforms into a zombie and pursues Andre throughout the house in an attempt to harm him. The child, scared, flees outside and trips, but just as the mother is going to get to him, Dan strikes her with his car. Andre tries to aid her because she's still alive despite her injuries, but Dan stops him. He advises Andre to hide in his house and indicates that 911 isn't picking up before leaving. Andre pulls his mother by the legs and drags her back inside the home as more zombies approach because he won't let her go. He quickly shuts all the doors before attempting to call 911, but all he gets is a recorded message stating that the island is under quarantine. There is a gate that prevents anyone from entering or leaving the island, as shown by the presence of city police at the bridge that links it to the mainland. The mother tries to attack Annie at that point, so Andre takes her out and locks her in the restroom. The mother chooses to get in the tub after noticing that the shower head is leaking water. The zombies continue to assemble at the door as Annie continues to cry in the meantime. In order to stop the crying and drive the zombies away, Andre covers her with cushions, a blanket, and even a large plush toy. A zombie unexpectedly rushes inside and nearly grabs Andre when his cat returns to the house through the pet door a few minutes later. The zombie stops moving as the youngster leaves the room, but it starts up again when Andre returns carrying a golf club. But rather than attacking, he chooses to hide. Patricia hides in the garage at the golf course before eventually calling her father for assistance. Dan soon finds himself confronted by a group of zombies outside, but he fights them head-on, swiftly taking out a couple with a knife and bringing down others before sprinting inside. At that point, the military arrives on the island in planes to bomb the key areas, cutting out the power, so the police walk away from the bridge entrance. When Annie's nanny tries to cross the bridge to get to work the following morning, it has also been damaged. Andre, meantime, records the zombies through the glass, pausing only to see the Minister of Public Security's news conference. The man assures that everything is under control and adds that they had to demolish the bridge in order to isolate the issue. Andre's phone runs out of battery at that precise moment. When Andre goes to check on his mother later, he discovers that she has some green goo on her body. When Annie suddenly climbs in and the mother tries to harm her, Andre scares her away with noise and a shake of her favorite veggies to persuade her to follow him instead. When they eventually arrive in the living room, the mother unintentionally bumps into the TV stand, which sends the TV tumbling to her death. Devastated, Andre is forced to carry the body back to the restroom where he discovers grass growing on her wounds. Then he takes her phone, which is regrettably broken. The zombies are indeed just standing there in the sun when Andre climbs a ladder to the front entrance and looks outside. He opens the door, letting the zombies see the cat and pursue it, after grabbing the golf club and placing Annie in a baby carrier since he is sick of being cooped up. After the entry is clear, the zombies pursue Andre as he dashes in the direction of the grocery store. He nearly gets encircled by the monsters because the doors are locked, but Dan pulls him inside as a door unexpectedly opens. Dan hasn't had a plan, but he's been here since yesterday and has set up a small camping area. Since all of the boats have been removed, swimming in the river will cause hypothermia and death. While Annie searches the area for baby formula, Andre heads off in search of it. Out of nowhere, Annie spots a zombie behind locked doors. Patricia is the one who's been contaminated as well. Dan is keeping her alive in the hopes that she may eventually be cured by someone. While at the golf club, Michel has reinforced all of the doors and is communicating with his colleagues via radio. They have informed him that experts are en route and that he needs to adhere to protocol as well. He kicks the zombie dog away because it keeps barking at him. He kills his pal in the kitchen, it is also revealed. Dan is still unable to light a fire back at the store, so Andre resorts to using a blowtorch. They listen to Dan's favorite radio program, which accuses eco-terrorists of being responsible for the zombie attack, while they eat. The Minister of Security is interviewed by the host, but he is your standard politician, dodging questions or responding with evasive, meaningless statements. The host is suspicious and believes the government would sacrifice its people in order to clean up the area. Dan makes the decision to give the radio station a call, explain that there are survivors, and request assistance. But the host makes the point that not everyone wants the infection, therefore he wants to hear all the facts before siding with anyone. Annoyed, Dan ends the call. After talking over their choices, Dan and Andre decide to investigate the reason of this in order to develop a vaccine. After giving it some thought, Dan concludes that since it's the only thing that unites everyone, it must be in the water. As a result of his paranoia, he avoids drinking it straight from the faucet. He even believes that terrorists might have contaminated the water, which Andre finds absurd. Shortly after, Patricia, whose head has been placed in a cage to prevent biting, is brought out of the store by the three of them. They discover a group of green goopy zombies lounging in the sun, and a small girl strikes Dan the moment she spots him. He shoves her away swiftly, but he doesn't have the courage to murder her and carries on. Before the undead catch up, the party escapes safely by getting into Dan's car. In the meantime, two armed twins dispatched by the biotech business show up at the golf club and effortlessly dispatch every zombie that tries to get in their way. While Michel burns all the contracts and paperwork associated with his agreement with the club, he retains a tiny sample of the fertilizer. Michel grabs one of the twins' luggage, which has spheres containing the medicine that can eradicate the virus in 24 hours, after the twins quickly locate him. He reaches for a sphere, but the twins catch him, make him swallow the fertilizer sample, and then they knock him out. The sphere hits the floor as they pull his body away. Returning to the survivors, they choose to leave Annie in the car after arriving at the water plant because they believe that her sobbing will draw zombies. Dan and Andre take Patricia with them when they enter the building since they can't leave her alone with the baby. A grassy zombie is lurking in the pool. When Patricia realizes this, the guys are forced to follow her as she starts to run in search of him. She swiftly locates the pool and dives in, prompting Dan to follow suit in order to save her. The other zombie reappears out of nowhere and is about to attack, but Dan locates Patricia and holds her in front of him, causing the other zombie to retreat. As Andre approaches, he understands that the zombies would not harm one another, but the creature hears him and comes after him right away. As Andre ventures outdoors and additional zombies join the hunt, Dan unintentionally cuts Patricia's arm off while trying to pull her out of the water. After Andre finally makes it to the car to shelter inside, Dan soon follows, using Patricia as a shield to keep the zombies at bay. When they get into the car with the siblings, Andre notices Patricia also has a phone due to a noise he hears. He takes it and unlocks it with her amputated arm, which causes him to see that grass is sprouting on the wound. Dan finds it strange that there is grass in the winter until he recalls the newest invention made by golf clubs and realizes that golfers, not terrorists, are responsible for this. The twins start smashing the spheres on the grass at the golf course in an attempt to remove all the evidence. As soon as Dan's party shows up, they notice the odd smoke on the grass, so Andre makes sure to take notes. Dan searches for an alternate entrance as they dash to the front door and discover it shut. He scales the roof and enters to let the others in, locking Patricia in the storage area while Andre sets up chairs to serve as Annie's playpen. When Dan and Andre start looking around the structure, they discover the dog, which is coated in grass and still breathing. Annie starts crying at that point, and Andre runs to comfort her as Dan starts to feel lightheaded. But he finds out she's gotten out of the makeshift playpen. Dan finds a number of bombs that would shortly blow up the building while Andre searches for his sister. Dan finds this out while walking down a dimly lit hallway. Even though he starts to feel worse, he doesn't give up and keeps searching until he locates the chamber where the timer that connects to all the explosives is located. Dan uses Patricia's arm to stop the timer just before his eyes turn green because he falls and is too weak to get up. The twins walk back inside to look into it after noticing nothing is erupting outside. Before departing, they find Annie in the kitchen and feed her the fertilizer. Andre keeps hunting around and eventually finds his sister, whom he takes away after seeing a zombie-like Michelle in a closed chamber. He then flees in the opposite direction. The twins obstruct his path in another room, covering Annie's lips and grabbing Andre to give him the fertilizer. But before the sample disappears, Annie too turns into a zombie and eats the twins' finger. Dan nearly attacks the other twin, but she defends herself, and when Andre pushes her in his direction, Dan bites her. Andre retreats, stepping on the cure sphere, which allows the smoke to fill the space and begin operating within Dan and Danny. After that, Dan follows Andre, and the two of them make it to the kitchen. Just as Dan is about to bite Andre, he realizes Annie is there and retreats. Before one of the twins can complete their transformation, the other pulls out their firearms and shoots the other simultaneously. Then, Andre uses Patricia's phone to ring by removing Dan's antiquated phone from his jacket. When he does, he begs for assistance, and creates a video in which he explains everything. Andre shows Dan to the storage room so he can remain with his daughter until the footage gets picked up by the news. The government will soon dispatch army helicopters to perform thorough cleaning. While a troop of troops uses flamethrowers to eliminate any zombies in their path, Andre travels to seek assistance and brings Patricia's arm so that immunizations can be administered. But before the second survivor can reach the soldiers, she is shot and killed. Andre makes the decision to hide after the treatment takes effect and Annie recovers because it is clear that the soldiers aren't there to save lives. Dan also gets better at the golf club, but as soon as the soldiers enter the door, they set Patricia and Dan on fire. The Minister of Public Security declares that the illness has been completely eradicated and contained, but he is later seen sipping from a cup bearing the biotech company's emblem, suggesting that he was involved in the plot from the beginning. Andre continues to explore, discovering additional bodies of shot-down survivors. Abruptly, he spots something in the river, a volunteer boat headed by Annie's nanny, who comes to his aid without hesitation. Andre throws the arm into the ocean as they leave the island, realizing it is now useless, and a fish immediately turns into a zombie after it bites it. Brain Freeze, 2021, a bite-sized review. The breakdown. Brain Freeze is a 2021 French-Canadian horror comedy that serves up a chilling, and sometimes hilarious, take on the zombie apocalypse. A fancy fertilizer turns residents of a gated community into flesh-hungry monsters, leaving a teenage boy and his baby sister to fight for survival. The good stuff. Genre mashup. Brain Freeze blends scares with slapstick humor, creating a unique and entertaining experience. Social commentary. The film cleverly satirizes social class and wealth disparity, with the gated community becoming a breeding ground for the zombie outbreak. Fast-paced fun, clocking in at just over an hour and a half, Brain Freeze keeps the action moving, making it a quick and enjoyable watch. The not-so-good stuff. Cheesy moments. The humor can be a bit hit or miss, with some jokes landing flat. Character development. The film prioritizes laughs over deep character exploration. The moral of the story: Brain Freeze might be light on chills, but it does offer a tongue-in-cheek message about environmental responsibility and the dangers of class segregation. Easy recommendation. Brain Freeze is a perfect choice for those looking for a zombie comedy that's more goofy than gory. It's a fun popcorn flick that won't take itself too seriously.